Well, I'm back. I've got this set up to where you can see the LC101. The one thing that I always do with a higher energy capacitor like this, I always keep a jumper across and put a jumper across before I use any of my capacitor testers, even though I know that there may be no charge there. And actually, once I do the leakage on this, I definitely want to put it across here because I've got another capacitor tester I'm going to use. I've found that I purchased this LC101 off of eBay a while back, and the ESR function on it's a little bit on the spotty side, so I use it. Seems like the value is very good, and then also the leakage is very good, so I just use it for value and leakage. And I have another meter which I'll show you here in a second to do the ESR, but I might actually, I'll hit the ESR button anyways. We'll kind of compare, see how close it really is. What I found is I can do the ESR 3 or 4 times in a short period of time and come up with different numbers each time that are too far off to be considered accurate. But anyways, do the value. Remember, this is a 470 microfarad. So we're not doing too bad there. Actually, that's kind of jumping around too, I noticed. I hope I don't have problems with this thing. This has been a really nice unit up until recently. But we'll put the leakage button in there. It'll take a short time. I've got this charging up to 400 volts. And that's probably not too awfully bad. It dropped down to where it starts I guess passing or whatever fairly quickly. You have to remember there's a certain amount of lag time to charge this capacitor up, so it may flash 888 for, depending upon how large the capacitor is, 4 or 5 seconds, but the leakage is coming down pretty quickly on it. We're already down to 500 or so. One thing I guess I probably should do too, I noticed, you know, I said before that the ESR has been spotty recently and the value looked kind of spotty. I've got a different set of test leads. I've got a set of ×1 oscilloscope leads that I purchased to use on this. I still have the original leads, but I'm trying to I guess limit the amount of use that I use those original leads for, because they're extremely expensive and I don't want to possibly break a wire or ruin them. And I have to kind of wonder if maybe these oscilloscope leads, they've worked really well for 6 months or more, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe they've got a bit of an issue themselves. So maybe I'll test that at some point here. But the main thing I'm worried about now is the value is about what it should be, and the leakage, I mean, we're down to next to nothing pretty quickly. In fact, we are down to nothing, so this capacitor is not leaky at all. That little beep is when it discharges, so we'll try the other one out. And as I pull these off, I'll put the jumper across here, because the last thing I want is for this thing to have some rebound voltage and kill my other LCR meter. So here's the second one now. I'll try it out. I guess I didn't hit the ESR on there. I'll try this one. Yeah, because I was messing around with them. Let's see if I can't get the leads to 0 first. Yeah, not very well. Yeah, I might have, you know, we'll see how it is. I might have to pull this thing apart, maybe do a little bit of work on it. But let's try the ESR again just for the heck of it. I know the other meter is at 0.01 it says, which that's believable. I know the other meter is very accurate, so value about 412. So 413, it's a 470 microfarad, so the value's slightly low but not super low. Now let's do the leakage on this one. I probably should have brought my stopwatch out, or my timer out. We could have compared the two, but more than likely it'll be good as well. I gotta get that in, stretch that out some, get it to go in a little bit farther. There we go. See, it drops right down pretty quickly too. We're counting down fairly quickly, right down to, sure what those are, that's microamps, so you know, we're not, it's not like we're talking huge amount of leakage here. This thing's fairly sensitive, so I'm on the large aluminum electrolytics setting on the leakage range. So that's dropping right, pretty much right down to zero again, so I don't think these bus capacitors are a problem. But what I'll do next is I'll get out my other LCR meter here as soon as let's just watch this go down a little bit more. This one may be a little bit more leaky because it's kind of hanging around 210 or so. But still, we're talking microamps. I just don't think this is necessarily the problem. I guess what I could have done is I could have maybe heated these capacitors up with a heat gun or something. I'm not sure if I have my heat gun out here or not. I don't think I do. I think it's still in the basement. I haven't brought all my stuff out in the garage yet. But yeah, it's coming down fairly quickly though. So I don't think, as far as leakage and value, I don't think there's really much of a problem there. So I'll shut this off. I always run that down to lowest voltage setting so I don't accidentally fry a capacitor that's rated for 20 volts with 400 volts. But I've got this LCR meter I bought quite a while ago that seems to be really good. I was wondering if it would be or not. This one here is branded. Let me stand this up and hopefully be able to get it in the camera. This is branded Dear E, but actually I think that's the Taiwanese manufacturer of this thing, and I think Genrad marketed basically this same LCR meter, but it's actually been a pretty decent LCR meter. I was surprised. I got it just, I can't remember what I paid for it. I bought it from a Japanese eBay site and paid a lot less money for it. It had all the accessories that come with it, but it was a lot less money than if I'd have bought it, say, from a US seller. So I thought I'd try it. It seems to work really good. I've had it for probably a year and a half by now. But let's take this and hook this capacitor up. Let's see what we've got here. Yeah, I'm pretty close to the same, 416 microfarads. Let's see, we're testing this at 1 kilohertz. There's Q, ESR, 0.03. There's basically nothing wrong with that capacitor. With this DIR E meter, you can test this at 10 kilohertz, which usually a capacitor like this, it won't even read it. And then at 100 kilohertz as well, and same thing. And then down you've got 100 hertz and then 120 hertz. Now the reason why there's 100 hertz and 120 hertz on some of these international meters like this is due to the fact that in the States the output, say, of a full wave bridge rectifier going into a filter capacitor is going to be equivalent to 120 hertz because it's twice the 60 hertz. But internationally, most countries run off of 50 hertz. So that's why you have the 100 hertz and the 120 hertz setting on most of these LCR meters. And of course, you know, it's showing ESR basically 0. Of course, you don't have quite the resolution as you do at 1K. So just looking at this, there is absolutely nothing wrong with this meter, with this capacitor. So let's put the other one on and see what it looks like. We'll just leave it on 1 kilohertz. That's usually what I test most electrolytics at. If it tests good there, then it's going to function for just about anything it's made for. Okay, 409 microfarad, 0.03. So basically same numbers as the other one. So judging by the way the leakage went on these two capacitors and the ESR and then the microfarads, they're both showing a bit low, 409 microfarad as compared to 470, but I don't really think that's an issue. So I'd have to say these two bus capacitors are perfectly good. So I guess the next step then is testing this IGBT module, which is going to be possibly a little bit harder. I'm going to have to probably shut the camera off and do a little bit of figuring out on how I want to do this, because like I said, these modules, I actually printed out the data sheet for it, and it definitely is 3-phase bridge plus brake chopper plus 3-phase inverter, and also there is a thermistor in there somewhere that I would have to assume is probably what's sending the signal to this drive saying, hey, this heat sink's too hot, because I didn't see any other actual thermistor connected anywhere to the heat sink. Now this is probably one of the, in a lot of ways, even though there's a lot of information here that's good, this is probably one of the crappiest data sheets I've seen, due to the fact that, well, right here is your schematic for that skip module, and this thing is tiny. You print this thing out, you almost have to have a magnifying glass. It doesn't really tell you where everything's at on here. It just gives you the overall schematic. Now on the last page it does show you where everything's at, but how in the heck are you going to read that? And then there's also an accompanying schematic to that as well. So what I ended up doing is I got my crappy 10-year-old laptop out here, blew that up to 400%, and now I can kind of see what's there. So I'm going to shut the camera off, and I'm going to take a magic marker or some sort of pen or something and basically write down each one of these pin locations, pin designations as it matches that, and then we'll see if we can't do some sort of testing on this, and may or may not get something worthwhile out of it. We'll try to see, but I'll be back.